We now start the Minister IWAYA's press conference, please.
Thank you for coming. Yesterday, I received the resolution to drastically strengthen Japan's diplomatic capabilities from the Liberal Democratic Party. The resolution mentions that within this status of major historical transformation, diplomatic and defense capabilities must be strengthened in a well-balanced manner. And under the notion of failure in diplomacy will undermine the nation, the necessity to drastically strengthen diplomatic capabilities was stated. Because we are in times where the international affairs are changing drastically, it is important to engage in diplomacy based on dialogue and cooperation. Coverage and scope of foreign policy is expanding, and therefore strengthening the diplomacy capability is needed. But at the same time, MOFA's front line has become longer than ever. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will take into consideration the discussions within the LDP and secure necessary budget and human resources. That is all from myself at the beginning.
If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and when you are appointed, please approach to the microphones and state your name and affiliation. Kamimura-san of the Yomiuri Shimbun, please. This is Kamimura of the Yomiuri Shimbun. I would like to ask questions about the Israeli situation. On the 21st, on the west bank of the area where the warning shots fired at the diplomatic mission. I would like to ask about this. What is your impression? And in the ministry, for the commissions in the parliament, you mentioned that you have asked the briefing from the Israeli side, and were there any explanations shared to the Japanese government? In regard to the situation in the Gaza, the UK have suspended the trade negotiation with Israeli, and also strengthened the sanctions on this matter. And are there any measures that the Japanese government is going to implement? In regard to the factual relationship, it was on the 21st of May. The diplomatic corps, including our countries, were visiting the Jenin refugee camp. And the warning fire was shot by the Israeli army. And there were no casualties because of this incident. Including our countries, and yet we are trying to discover the factual relationship at this moment. However, the type of incident is extremely regrettable, and this should not have been occurred to begin with. And therefore, immediately after the incident had happened, the General Director of Middle East and Africa Bureau launched a protest to Israeli ambassador in Tokyo, and also we have sent the Japan's acting ambassador to Israel to launch a protest to the Asia Pacific Bureau Deputy Director of the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In addition, the Vice Minister Funakoshi on the 22nd have summoned the Israeli ambassador of Cohen in Tokyo and lodged a strong protest and asked for a full explanation and the prevention measures for recurrence. And we received that from Israeli that they recognize our requests, and they are showing regrets about such incidents, but they are still in the middle of investigation, and they are willing to share information once it is revealed. And we would like to ask Israeli to explain fully and ask for the preventive measures. And at the same time, I'd like to express condolences to the killing of two officials at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. on the 21st of local time. And I'd like to express profound condolences, and the Japanese government is in the position that we will not condone any form of terrorism. I would like to once again re-emphasize this message. And in addition, regard to the reoccupation of Gaza and also waging a further military attacks, and humanitarian situation is aggravating further. And then it is actually contradicting with the two bilateral resolution, and our country is strongly opposed to this such an action, and we will ask strongly to Israeli to act appropriately. On the 13th of May, there was a Japan-Israeli foreign ministerial meetings, and I have urged the foreign minister Tsar to go back to the truce negotiations and try to sincerely work to to continue efforts to reach agreements, and I have urged them to enhance the civilians' protection and humanitarian support and compliance with the international law, including international humanitarian law. In addition, violation by the extremists by occupying in the west bank of the Jordan River should not be also condoned as well, and I'd like to express condemnation. For the four resettlers who have committed to the violence to Palestinians in July of the last year, our country have adopted sanctions such as asset freeze and so forth. So we will coordinate efforts with international societies such as G7, and we'd like to ask for the complete freeze of the settlements to the Israeli government. Thank you.
Sakaguchi-san, Kyoto News. Sakaguchi of Kyoto News, thank you for this opportunity. The U.S. government announced that President Trump will participate in the G7 summit to be held in Canada in June. There were voices concerning whether President Trump will attend the summit or not. What's your take on this announcement? And there was this telephone conference between the two leaders this morning, between Prime Minister Ishiba and President Trump, and they confirmed that they're looking forward to the in-person meeting. And Minister Akazawa left for the United States today for tariff negotiations. Is there any idea to seek the U.S.-Japan agreement on the occasion of the G7? And what is your expectation towards Minister Akazawa's visit this weekend? Thank you very much. I do understand that the U.S. government made an announcement on the participation by President Trump to the G7 Kananaskis summit. And also this morning, there was the telephone conference between the two leaders, between Prime Minister Ishiba and President Trump, and they talked to each other, confirming that they are looking forward to the in-person meeting on the occasion of the G7. As the international community faces many challenges, the solidarity of the G7 is crucially important. Including at the summit level, Japan will continue to communicate well with the G7 members in order to further reinforce the solidarity amongst the G7. Now, regarding the U.S.-Japan consultations, I will not make any comments based upon any prejudice with regards to the timing of the agreement, but we truly hope that there could be the leaders' agreement at the earliest possible timing, so that such announcement can be made. But what's important is to achieve a win-win agreement which would benefit both the Japanese side and the U.S. side. We do not want to undermine Japan's natural interest just because we rushed to an early conclusion. We will take into consideration the achievements to date during the course of the consultations and make all of government efforts to solve this issue as a highest priority issue. Minister Akazawa is traveling to the United States at the moment. He will make efforts to achieve a comprehensive agreement that would strengthen both economies at the earliest possible timing. And under the consultations, we are seeking the maximum progress in the next round. Now, the leaders' telephone conference was held in a very amicable mood. So We hope that the telephone conference will also contribute to the ministerial consultations to be participated by Minister Akazawa.
Next question, Chiba-san of JJ Press. U.S. government have announced the suspension of the acceptance of the foreign students program of the Harvard University, and there were so many Japanese foreign students studying in the Harvard. And are there any response from the Japanese government? Well, the suspension of the acceptance of the foreign students at the Harvard University, as you have indicated, and this is an announcement made by DHS, and we are fully aware of that announcement. I was actually surprised. And from the MOFA, we have requested the information provision to the U.S. government via U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, because there are so many Japanese students studying in the Harvard University. So Japanese government is highly interested in this particular announcement and asking for the further information in order to reduce the impact on the Japanese students studying in the Harvard University. And we are going to request our embassy in Washington, D.C. to ask for the U.S. government for further information in this regard. If some question is raised to the MOFA or to the Japanese government or the embassies outside of Japan from the Japanese students, and we'd like to respond to such questions and advices in a tenacious way. And we'd like to further explore information and try to confirm the response from the Harvard University, and then we will respond in appropriate way.
One more regarding international student. There have been repeated revocation of student visas for international students, which has impacted Japanese students. What's your evaluation of the current status, and is there anything that the Japanese government can do? Since April, there have been various inquiries to the embassies and consul general in the United States regarding revocation of student visas and resident status, on whether it would be possible to reinstate such status and visas. And to date, when we receive these inquiries, we've been trying to provide as sincere as possible advice. And when deemed necessary, we have also referred lawyers to these people. And on 1st of May, the Japanese Embassy in the United States and Consulate General of Japan in the United States had sent a counsel mail to the Japanese citizens residing in the United States from the perspective of providing them information, explaining the response that they ought to be taken should their student visa or resident status be revoked. We have been discussing with the U.S. government regarding the revocation of visa, but we will continue to make efforts to communicate well with the U.S. government. Thank you very much. This will be the end of the press conference. Thank you for coming.